up. Killing infidels, always got it planned. Underhand, give a lot of yell. My, woo! My Sharia.
My Sharia.
My Sharia. My Sharia.
All right, my Sharia. All right, my Sharia. All right, my Sharia. We're getting the volumes here on, for those of you who follow the show religiously. And there are many of you, and we appreciate that. You may notice something different about my physical attire today.
You're actually wearing a shirt?
No, it's the same shirt I've been wearing for like 3 days in a row here. Well, let's see if you guys can figure it out. He said rhetorically, Damon, do you see anything different about me?
Yes, I do.
I do not.
Okay. You do? What do you see, Mark?
I see a mic on your lapel.
Oh, that's not quite a lapel. Aren't these the lapels?
Yeah, well, you got it on your shirt.
On my shirt.
Not on your face today.
I thought maybe a few extra wrinkles in the shirt possibly, but...
It's possible. I have a lapel mic on today instead of a crazy ear thing with a microphone goes like this in your side tooth. That actually provides very good audio communication to our listeners. You do understand, folks, that 8 minutes after 4 o'clock on this Triskaidekaphobia Jumping Juma Freaky Friday. That's a mouthful. It's Jumping Juma Freaky Friday, where we take an insightful look at the religion of peace and expose some of its shortcomings, so to speak. But uniquely today, not only is it Jumping Juma meaning the most important day of the week for our Islamic brothers and sisters. If you're a male and you miss 3 Fridays in a row.
Oh my God!
This guy.
I thought we got the new office to get rid of this guy.
Goodness, I am so sorry being late on as usual on the Friday. Sorry,
How did you
Mr.
find the
Trento.
place? We didn't give you directions or anything. What did you do? Leave a trail of smell Tom out or something or what?
You must have told him where we're going.
No, I did not. I don't know how he found us.
What do we do now?
I don't know. He's here
I
again.
must be honest.
It's
followed
Jumpin'
you after
Juma
work
Spooky
last
Freaky Friday. He found us.
He followed us.
He did. He's got tracking devices.
Look, we love Imam Abdullah, Pakistani Taliban Muslim, Sunni Muslim. We love him, but we got a little tired of him in the old place. And
we got to change the locks, Tom.
yeah, well, he knows where we are now. So I guess we let him in. How was Juma today, Imam?
Absolutely fantastic as always, Tom. Thank you for asking, Infidel.
Well, you may be interested to know that there's been some episodes of Islamophobia possibly in the United States. Very sad, tragic situation in North Carolina where 3 students were murdered by a whack job. You know, the
total whack
care
job.
in those groups are saying Islamophobia.
Yeah.
Of course, any
yeah,
crime
of course.
against a Muslim is Islamophobia.
We heard there's a mosque burned in Houston, Texas, or something like this. But let me tell you about this one. This may be the most serious Islamophobia situation. A mosque, the four men went into a mosque and they blew themselves up and killed 19 people and injured 50 others. They were wearing belts with bombs on them.
Were they Christians, Tom?
Let me see.
Were they Jews or Christians?
They're probably
Yeah.
Jews. Jews do that all the time.
I think they were Hollywood Jews, I think.
Yeah.
You know, the Hollywood,
yes,
the Jews that
of
run
course.
Hollywood.
Yeah.
Very
I think they
common.
got fed up with their life, put on suicide belts,
Yep.
went to Peshawar, Pakistan, went into a Shia mosque and blew themselves up. I think that's
Oh,
what
they
happened.
blew up the Shia.
I'm sorry, it wasn't Hollywood Jews that blew
It was
themselves
Christians.
up.
It was Christians.
Christians. Oh, I know. It was Mormons. It was Mormons that did that. Wasn't it
No,
Mormons? Mormons
no.
do that stuff all the time, Tom.
No, it was, I'm sorry to say, Imam Abdullah, Pakistani Taliban Sunni Muslims.
Oh, my cousins do this, yes? But you said it was to the filthy Shia, so I understand.
4 of your cousins put
Yes,
on
yes.
But it's okay, as long as it's,
suicide vests, went to a Shia mosque
A
in
heretic
Peshawar,
mosque.
Pakistan, yesterday, blew themselves up, killed 19 people and injured 50 others. Now, could we get CARE on the phone? Could we get, not today, but
Not today.
again.
Oh, I thought you were
That
throwing
was
us a
last
curveball.
week.
I thought you were throwing us a curveball.
That was last week.
Last week. But we will do that. I'd like to get a CARE official to officially designate this as Islamophobia. I think that's what we need to happen because, we're Islamophobes because we find humor in some of the insane doctrine of Islam. We're Islamophobes because we call out the inconsistency of the Sharia and the deadly and dangerous principles integrated and insinuated in the Sharia Islamic law. I saw yesterday, sadly, in Syria, they had a Sharia court in the middle of the street with all the kids watching, and they were calling out this woman on apparently some sort of immorality, and these jerk bleeps with the big beards and no mustache, all the Islamic State imams were reading her sentence, and then at the end, one of them put a 45 over her head and shot straight down into her head as she was, and forced her into her knees, and she just fell immediately, blood all over the place, and they were cheering. The kids were cheering, the people were cheering.
Everyone had their cell phones out, their big
They were
screen
taping
cell
it.
phones. They were taping it, taking pictures of it, just like you would if you saw a celebrity going down the street. If you saw,
Yep.
Jon Stewart going down the street and wanted to get pictures of him, that's what they were doing to this poor woman.
Yep. And we here in the West have, through the years, in our judicial system, said that, justice is necessary. In fact, capital justice, a life for a life, is necessary. That's part of the doctrine of the United States of America.
Yes.
But we got to a point, because of the Judeo-Christian basis upon which we live, to separate vengeance from justice. Vengeance is the Lord. Now, hang on, before you show this, I don't know if we want to show.
I will not go to the end.
Yeah. You can show it and stop it before he shoots her.
Yes, I will not go to the end.
We're showing it's really, really horrendous. But here
Is
in
that
the West,
woman,
we've
the girl in the
separated.
red? Is
Yes.
that yeah, okay.
That's the woman. Watch how they force her down. We're showing it right now, 13 minutes after 4 o'clock. Tom Trento, your host on Triskaidekaphobia.
Friday the 13th.
Triskaidekaphobia,
Jumping
Friday the
Juma,
13th,
Spooky, Freaky
yeah.
Friday.
And Enemies of the State, name of the show, the radio station WSBR.
Sunny
We're
Boca
showing a
Raton.
little, what?
Sunny Boca Raton.
Sunny Boca Raton. See if we can find the call sign for Tampa.
Yes. Good idea.
Because we're now on in Tampa Bay. Badir Ahmed.
Ahmed.
He calls himself Ahmed.
No.
What's he say?
On the radio, on his public broadcast, he's Ahmed.
No, he has a hard K in there.
No.
Ahmed.
But when he's out talking to his peeps, he's Ahmed.
You have to spit.
You have to
say it
see.
right.
He spits it when he talks to his peeps, but when
Let
he's
me
talking,
tell
he's
you,
Ahmed.
that guy is a serious enemy of the state.
Oh, yeah,
but also in Tampa, we got to give a big hello to our Sharia compliant bearded friend at the #1 civil rights organization for Muslims in the country. Hello, Hassan Shibli.
I want to show
Yeah,
a
hi.
video. We're going to show a video today. Do we have the capability of doing that?
Probably.
Yeah, if you give us a little
If you
pre-production
let me know
warning.
what you're talking about.
Our regional director for the United West, Alan Corman, produced on.
I gotta
I could do that.
Yeah, you know where that one is. We'll show that a little later because we got Jerusalem Jane coming up in just a few
we're not-
We
seconds.
already got Jerusalem.
We got her
She's
there.
been
Okay.
listening to all this
Let me
silliness.
finish my Pakistani Islamophobia.
Yes, please
comment.
do.
The United States, in its wisdom, separated, very important doctrine, folks, separated justice from vengeance. And based upon the scriptures, Old Testament, New Testament, Jews, Christians, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. The fact of vengeance is the domain of God. The area of justice is the domain delegated through proper governmental officials, the domain of the civil authorities. So we have determined that cruel and unusual punishment violates the Judeo-Christian doctrine of justice, unlike Islam for 1,400 years that says no. show the cruel and inhumane punishment, because that will serve as a teacher for other people not to do wrong. That's why they have these public hangings, executions, beheadings, and this shooting of this very, very sad situation with this lady. We would ask, what would Muhammad do if the lady was caught in adultery? Would he hold court out in the middle of Syria and then shoot her in the head with a 45? Yes, he would.
He wouldn't shoot her. He'd have someone else do
Or
it.
he would shoot her. I mean, that's Muhammad. What would Jesus do? Exactly what he did. He said, those of you without sin, you cast the first stone, or you pull the trigger on that. That's what he would have done. And then when they all walked away, because they all knew they were with sin, he then says to the lady, all right, go and sin no more. That's what would have happened yesterday if Christians were holding court for that woman. But no, they shoot her in the top of the head and kill her in front of little kids taping it on their cell phones. Animals. That's animalistic behavior. In any event, I want care to say that it's Islamophobia when the Taliban Sunnis go into a Shia mosque, blow a bunch of people up and kill them. What the heck does that have to do with America, Americans, Jews, or Christians?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
What does it have to do? It has to do with American colonialism over the years, and this is why all of the unrest in the Middle East, it is the fault of the West. Everybody knows this.
Okay, well,
Ask Edward Said.
I mean, you're articulating, Imam Abdullah, the Middle East geopolitical teaching of Harvard University.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, of all the Ivy League schools. Look, we have colonized the West, and now ingrained in the downtrodden Muslims is this hatred, and it manifests itself out in these abuses among each other, and it's our fault, and ultimately can be traced back to the Jews.
The spoiled 2-year-old. It's the spoiled 2-year-old mentality where these people are spoiled by their mothers, spoiled as mama's boys, and then have to stomp around, kick and scream, and blame everything else, makes excuses, make lies when they're caught red-handed. It's like dealing with a 2-year-old. It really is.
It is. I have to apologize to the viewing audience here at 19 minutes after 4 o'clock, Tom Trento, Enemies of the State. As Mark was saying something very seriously, I started laughing. And I was not laughing at what Mark was saying. I picked up my glasses to read, and let's just say some Dunkin' Donut material, gooey material went on my glasses.
Did you lick it off?
Who was eating Dunkin' Donuts over my glasses
That would
today?
be you, Tom.
That would be you.
God, what the heck is that?
Our station.
Oh, it doesn't taste too bad.
Our station and call letters for Tampa for Ahmed Badir and Hassan Shibli and and our real fans up there is WHFS 1010. WHFS 1010. So for any of you internet listeners or for any of you Southeast Florida listeners, if you take a drive across to Tampa and you need your daily fix of Tom Trento and Enemies of the State, WHFS 1010. But it's always easy to go to iHeartRadio and
WHFS. We can have fun with those letters. What does it? Do we know what it means?
High frequency station.
Oh, W, high frequency. Or
No, I
holy
don't think it does.
Holy
Hillsborough, South Florida, I think it is.
Well, the Hillsborough, Florida.
The H is for halal.
The F is for fitna, and the S is for Sharia.
Yes. Very good.
All right, triskaidekaphobia, ladies and gentlemen. Triska 3, deca 10, phobia, fear. Fear of 3 plus 10, fear of Friday the 13th. But you know what? When she is around, no man has any fear. When she is around, no woman has any fear, because she is one of the bravest ladies in Jerusalem today.
That's
Please
right.
welcome
Yes.
warmly on this Jumpa Juma Freaky Friday, our dear friend, Jerusalem Jane.
Yeah.
Hello, Jane.
Hi guys.
How you
Hi.
doing?
I'm good. It's good to see you.
We missed
You guys crack me up. I'm sitting here trying to be quiet, and I'm. You guys are funny.
We crack ourselves up sometimes.
we hurt ourselves sometimes.
But we missed you. We heard you were a little under the weather. You're feeling better now. You look good and everything fine.
She always looks good, Tom.
Yes.
Is that any coincidence that Jane was sick while Schmucky was sick?
Yeah, I know.
Oh.
That's right.
Schmucky's been out for 3 days this week, Jane.
That's right.
3 days.
You didn't
Oh
have
my
an
God.
international visitor by any chance, did you, over there?
Who did he kiss?
Cyber
You're
kiss.
cheating on Jane.
I can't say nothing. I live in Kings Point. It's a very tight-knit community.
Cyber stuff going on
A lot of
here.
diseases floating around up there in those communities.
All right, well, Jane had a very extensive article published about herself, her work today. Tell everybody here at 22 minutes after on WSBR in South Florida and WHFS 1010. Tampa Bay, you're talking to thousands and thousands and thousands of people.
Millions.
Jerusalem, Jane. Tell us about the article. Who did it and what's it all about?
Well, I'm very honored, Tom, that it's a newspaper called Israel Hayom, and it's a big newspaper here in Israel. And they actually contacted me after the whole threat thing, saying, we want to talk to you. Why are you leaving a house and a life and a family in Denmark to come and stand for a tiny little nation like Israel? So we were going back and forth for a while. They had to decide if they want to do this thing, and they got back and saying, you know what, we would like to talk to you. So I had a very nice journalist in my house for 2 or 3 hours who just interviewed me. So it came out today. I'm very proud of it, actually. So it's a long interview, it's an article about me and my life, my childhood, what have I done in Denmark, what brought me to Israel, and what I'm doing here in Israel. So there you go.
Very, very cool. Now, what do you mentioned they were curious about you leaving Denmark, going to this tiny little country. What does your family think about you? How far is Denmark from Israel? That's a couple thousand miles, isn't it?
Oh gosh, are you asking me? I don't know. It's in Scandinavia. It takes 4 hours to
I bet you
fly.
it's at least
That's what I
2,000
know.
miles, probably more. What does your family think about you lifting up, and going bye-bye to this strange country and all of that? What? Maybe they're used to it now, but early on when you said, "Hi everybody, I'm going to live in Jerusalem," what did they say?
Are you crazy? What are you doing? The thing is, I'm a Christian. I believe in God. I know God called me to come here, but it was a completely step of faith because I didn't know what to do here. I didn't know where to live. I didn't know how to make an income, how to live day by day. But I knew God called me. And for some people, when you do live like that, they are really thinking you are out of your mind. And I had people saying to me, "Why don't you stay in Denmark? Why don't you just get a job in a factory or whatever and write on your little blog from Denmark?" And then I had people saying, "You know what, we know that this is what God wants you to do. God has given us one life, Tom. I'm probably sure what you're doing is what you say, this is what I'm meant to do." And in the same way, I can say, I know my life is in Israel. So I'm going to step out in faith, what I'm supposed to do, who I'm supposed to meet, and what I'm supposed to do here. God will reveal that in due time. But sometimes you have to step out in faith. It doesn't come before you leave. It comes after you're taking the first step.
Well said. And
Very well said.
Yeah, and I want to develop that. Mark, you found the distance. I see
2,000 miles.
2,000 miles.
Well,
So
hold on. Actually, what I actually do have for you in our new fancy dancy studio.
we also need the link. We want to show that newspaper article.
There's the route. Okay, there's how you get there.
Yeah.
Is-
What's the link? Can you send Damon the link real fast?
What? It's just map. Google
Jane.
map.
Jane.
Oh, 60.
Jane, send Damon the link for the newspaper, okay?
Okay.
This is amazing. Live television, folks. We're talking to Jerusalem Jane in Jerusalem. Our producer, Damon, is going to get a link from her to show you the article. Mark showing a map of how Jane flew here. What seat was Jane in on
Arms
Denmark
must be
Airlines?
exhausted from all that flying.
All right.
All right, now here's the case. That was, you've been there 3 years almost, 2.5 years or so?
Yeah, I've been going in and out a little bit because, of the visa situation. But yeah, I've been here a couple of years.
Now, has
Yeah.
has your family and your friends, have they gotten used to you doing this and seeing that you've been called by God, or are they still saying you've been called by God, but so has the lunatic that runs across the street, and lights himself on fire every couple of days? Have they accepted what you do?
Yeah, some of them has. Some of them are still a little like, okay. But what can I say? I wasn't born to please people, honestly. I was born to do what God has called me to do.
And what is that? If you had to, not if you had to, tell our viewers, tell our listeners in a sentence what your calling is to Israel.
To speak the truth in a world that is more and more biased against Israel. The media world is so biased against Israel, and there's so much going on here that doesn't reach the mainstream media. And that is what I know that I'm supposed to do. That's why I created the page that you're looking at now, calling Israel One Nation, to share news, to stand up for Israel, to share what does the Bible say when everybody's screaming up Palestine and Israel is occupying their own country. Are you kidding me? How can you occupy your own country? So I can say, well, God made a covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This is what the Bible says. And then another part that I'm doing, which is not as much in public, is to comfort my people, Tom. I meet Jewish people here every day who says, we don't have any friends in the world. Everybody hates us. Everybody is telling us what to do. So what the heck are you doing here? Why are you here? And I can say, I'm here because I love you, because God has called me to love you. If you love the Jewish people, you have friends for life, because they're not used to be loved, they are used to be hated. Sorry to say so.
And I could affirm exactly what you're saying, Jerusalem Jane, because not only do I see some of the correspondence that you have shared with others and you've gotten permission to share, where they express their deep gratitude, Jewish people, Israelis, their deep gratitude for you and for what you're doing. But we get those letters and that whole variety of communications saying,
about me?
Yeah, about you. Like, we're praying for her. She's doing great stuff. We love her, all of this. So, and here's, you said something earlier, and we're having a conversation with Jerusalem Jane right now from Jerusalem at 29 minutes after the hour, 29 minutes after 4 o'clock, if your hour isn't 4, in Florida, on the 13th of February. Tom Trento, your host here. We're having a conversation about the interpersonal component of fighting the jihad. Now, as you know, the United West confrontationally fights the Muslim Brotherhood ideologically. We will be in Washington, and we want you to be there with us on March 3rd, greeting Benjamin Netanyahu. We will be confronting hundreds and hundreds of Muslim Brotherhood, Palestinian, anti-American, anti-Israel protesters right there in Lafayette Park. We will have hundreds, if not thousands, of folks with us. Not going to be a fight or anything. The authorities put fences up. We don't operate that way. We fight intellectually and ideologically.
What fun is that?
I know. The Taliban guy wants to blow people
they
up.
want to blow
right?
people up. That's a lot more fun, right?
Yeah. That's short term, Imam Abdullah.
Oh, not if you're victorious, my friend.
Change hearts and minds,
He wants to change heads and
yeah.
Oh,
And
I'd like to
body
change your mind. We would like to change it from the top of your budget to the bottom.
I understand that. But Jane and I are having a conversation about the interpersonal, emotional, and existential element of fighting the jihad by befriending Jewish people. And as we know, our adventures in Israel, there are many Arab Israelis, people who are Arabs, their nationalities from an Arab country. They're Israelis because they're citizens of Israel, and many of them may be Muslims, and they are operating on a whole different paradigm. They don't want Islamic jihad, they don't want Sharia, they simply want to be good citizens in the state of Israel. And they're very friendly with Jewish people. So there is a way to have some sort of good relationship in spite of the lethal and kinetic.
Yeah, they have to accept the estate over the church.
That's what they have to accept.
But
It's
these are
pretty
not
simple.
real Muslims.
Yeah, well, that's the problem.
That's a conundrum.
And they are not real Muslims in terms of the doctrine. But in terms of governmental polity, it's an interesting question. But in any event, Jane, you are doing the Lord's work literally. And we know, as the Bible says, that a workman is due their hire. You don't really have. You don't have a job yet or anything, do you?
No. We were kind of working on that. I just kind of learned the rules for getting a work visa here, and oh my God, it's not easy.
Tom, she's got a job. She works for us.
I don't know what's gonna happen.
She works for us. Yeah, come on.
Yeah, very high-paying job working for us.
She makes as much as the boss.
She makes as much as I do.
Yeah, double my salary.
Yeah. Well,
you pay
what we need to do.
Tom, just to get a work visa is $3,000.
Oh boy.
Eee.
All right. Well, there's somebody.
Well, come to America. It's free.
Want me to go into my my?
We give you food stamps.
Want me to go into my charismatic?
Oh, nice.
Okay, we need 3. I know. I can see a brother out there with a check. You write that. Remember, you were in Orlando, Mark.
You know what? I would like to make a plea. As a Jewish person, Jewish person living in South Florida, the second largest population of Jewish people in this country, and there are actually about as many Jews in this country as there are Israel. Within earshot of this radio station, there are enough very wealthy Jews, thousands of very wealthy Jews, to come up with $3,000 for Jane Keel, who is doing more for Jewish world Jewry and the state of Israel than most of us will ever do in our whole lives.
Move your hand over.
No, we just want his finger.
One of you wealthy Jews that are listening to this, come up with $3,000 so Jane Keel can continue her ministry.
Preach it, Damon. Preach it.
And continue to help the state of Israel and world Jewry. One of you come and do it.
Yeah, all right.
Yay, way to go.
Way to go.
All right, now send that to us. It's tax deductible. We'll work out the differences and the United West administrative fee.
That's right.
We'll work out the administrative fee.
99 cents as usual.
And we'll send her a check for $4.11.
No, seriously, I am dead serious.
And we'll go right to her. All the money will go right to her.
There is no one I have ever met in my life, Jews included, that does more for the state of Israel, outside of Tom Trento.
That's right.
No, she's got these animals following her, and threatening her. So.
Literally, yeah.
All right, Janie. Let's pray that Damon, our in-house charismatic Jewish preacher, just touch somebody's heart out there, and they will contact us, and we will get you $3,000 to get you a visa. So we'll go from there. So, anything else we need to know before we let you go?
I went on the Temple Mount. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Okay.
What happened?
Yeah. God is so good. I mean, I was contacted last Friday all of a sudden by email by a pastor saying, I'm from South Carolina. I've been following your Israel One Nation for 8 months. I'm in Jerusalem now. God has been speaking to me for a long time. You need to get a hold of this lady. And his email wouldn't go through. All of a sudden there was connection, and we met 3 hours later. And he was so deeply moved and touched by who I am and what I'm doing. And he brought a friend, Greg. And so we just started walking down to the hotel. And at the hotel, we meet people from Holland. So they introduced me, and within me speaking for 5 minutes about who I am, they started crying, praying over me, singing over me from the Psalms, saying this is a divine appointment. We know God has sent you. We know we were supposed to meet you. And bam, right there, they just invited us home for a Shabbat dinner. You just showed the pictures. So all of a sudden, last Friday, I'm sitting having a Shabbat meal with 8 people I didn't even know existed 3 hours earlier.
Wow.
So God is connecting me, networking for me. And when they heard that I was in a bind money-wise, they took out their wallets. They just completely emptied their wallets and says, there is a need right now. We see there is a need, and then we can meet it, and we're going to meet it. So I cried, cool. They cried, and it was just amazing.
All right.
And those are the moments that when things get rough, as they do with the kind of ministry you have, you got to remember God's supernatural, sovereign, divine meeting of your need from people from all over the globe, uniquely on the Temple Mount. That's pretty cool. That is really pretty cool.
So we went to the Temple Mount because I can pronounce the names of the ladies from Holland because that's so special. But one of them has never been to the Temple Mount, and one of the guys from America has never been to the Temple Mount. So we went to the Temple Mount on Sunday for the first time for me in 2 months since I have all these threats. And you see these guys, Michael and Greg, they were big. So they were actually my bodyguards, following me around the whole time, being my eyes and ears.
That's such
behind
a
my
hard
back.
thing to have, isn't it, Jane?
Yeah,
those
big
big,
men,
handsome bodyguards following you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There they are.
Can I just say, you see these pictures you're seeing now? It was the most quiet day at the Temple Mount I have ever seen. It was really quiet. All of a sudden, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, and then we knew, okay, Jewish people are coming. And there was these 3 young guys, Jewish guys, being shown around. And please put the picture on. And Tom, tell me what you see in this picture. Something is missing.
Which
Tell me
picture?
if you guys can tell me what's missing on this picture.
You, first of all.
That picture right there with the 5 guys? Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not there.
Yeah. Do you see one of them is not wearing shoes?
One of them's not wearing shoes. Oh, yeah, the one on the left, far left. Behind.
Yeah, and if
behind.
you show the other pictures of them walking on the stairs, you can really see it. And because he was walking on holy ground.
Oh, wow.
Oh, okay.
These Jewish guys literally took us his shoes the whole time because
There you go.
he was walking on holy ground. You see, he's got them in his hand here.
Ah.
So I made a small video of all these men screaming at them, not just Allah Akbar, but, and I don't speak Arab, so I don't know what they were saying, but they were cursing them. They were screaming at them.
Where's that video? Where's that video?
Yeah, it's on Israel One Nation.
Oh, we gotta.
I should have sent it. I'm sorry.
Oh, you didn't say? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll put that up.
Yeah.
All right, Janie,
So-
we got to let you go. And as always, wonderful hearing about your divine work there for Israel, for Jewish people, and how God is meeting your needs. And we will get the message out in about 6 weeks.
Oh, she's a mensch, this one.
Yeah, you're going to meet Schmucky in about 6 weeks on the Temple
Can't
Mount.
wait.
Woo! Fireworks when that happens.
Yeah,
folks.
watch out.
Yeah, can't wait. All right. Jerusalem Jane, we love you.
Bye-bye.
You take care. Have a wonderful
I love you guys.
Bye.
Shalom.
Shalom. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
That's Jane on Shabbat. It's Shabbat
Shabbat, Jane.
in Israel. The sun is
Are you running a little
going
tight,
down.
A little tight in time here if we want to.
Yeah, we're not. I'm doing math here, and we're gonna have to cut somebody out. You know it best there.
Who you want to cut out? Bobby Jindal, John Guandolo,
Well, let's look at
or
the time.
Andy McCarthy? We cut out Andy Mack.
2:48. That's not going to be enough. But
We'll cut out Andy.
let's lead off. Here's where we are. We're at part 3 of Defeat Jihad Summit. We've been talking about this now. Man, I'm getting emails on this. People going, this is great. This is wonderful. You know, Ted Cruz and Alan West for president and vice president. We need more of these people like this. So as much as the live stream got out to several thousand people, by the way, we're extending this work by putting it to our vast audience. So we're going to give you a little taste right now. Defeat Jihad Summit took place on the 11th, a couple of days ago. Today's the 13th. And it was designed to preempt countering violent extremism, which is the nonsensical term and nonsensical event convened next week, the 17th, at the White House by the president to figure out how to defeat the jihad.
And I wonder who's going to be there. I wonder who's
Right.
going to be there from the Muslim community. Is it going
Really?
to be all the Muslim Brotherlink groups? Or is it going to be Reza Aslan,
They're not even
the
gonna
Iranian
tell us.
lobbyist?
I know.
They're not even going to tell us. They're not
No.
going to tell us who's there.
They're going to hide
You
it.
know,
They're certainly
Well,
not going to have
we have-
anyone. They're
we have-
certainly not going to have anyone that was at the event last week. All the professionals on the topic of the 35 people in that room, probably they were the top 35 authorities on the Islamic
Yeah.
threat doctrine. But none of those people will be there. They'll
Barack.
probably just have a room full of terrorists.
What are you doing? Barack, what are you doing? What the hell are you doing? You want to defeat the jihad or what?
No.
No.
No, I want to do selfie photo.
Did you see
photo,
all
oh,
that
that was
stuff?
ridiculous. That
All his
was
selfie
ridiculous.
photos.
It's like
BuzzFeed trying to get people to
BuzzFeed.
buy Obama.
He is a child. We
Yeah.
have
Well,
we have a child
Let's
running
get to the,
the
videos.
country.
Let's get to the videos here, and because this is important, you got Bobby Jindal queued up. If you want to
Me
do
over
him.
there.
You want
Bobby Jindal. The sounds like Bobby Jindal starting at third
Jindal.
base for the
for the home
for the
team.
Indian Indians.
All right, here we go. Bobby
Governor of Louisiana. Come on.
You know, I think that the threat of radical Islamic terrorism is a huge threat not only for America, but for our allies in the West as well. Indeed, I gave a speech about this just a few weeks ago in London. And there I said some things that got the left mad. The reality is, if you have the courage to stand up and talk about these topics, you'll be called a racist, or they'll say that you just must be anti-Muslim. Neither of those is obviously true. However, there are some hard truths we've got to face. The reality is we do face a grave and dangerous threat in the threat of radical Islamic terrorism. It's amazing that for some reason our president doesn't like to use those words. The reality is this: Islam has got a problem. Individual leaders in the Muslim community have a responsibility. It's not enough for them to condemn just in general acts of violence. Rather, they've got to condemn the individuals that are perpetrating these acts of violence. It's important for these leaders to stand up and say, these individuals, they're not going to enjoy a reward in the afterlife. Rather, these fools are going straight to hell. These aren't martyrs. They're not using honorable military tactics. Instead, they're attacking innocent women, men, and children. They're shooting individuals, teenagers, for watching soccer. They killed over 100 students in Pakistan for going to school. They killed cartoonists because they didn't like their editorial content. These are barbaric idiots who they burned a Jordanian pilot alive. They've committed atrocities all over.
I love it,
And the reality is that for some reason the left wants to pretend like this problem's not as serious as it is. And when you start saying things like Islam has a problem and individual Muslim leaders have got to condemn these individuals, they want to act like this was just some kind of small conflict. The reality is this: I hope and believe the majority of Muslims don't share the beliefs, the ideology of these radical murdering terrorists. But individual Muslim leaders have a responsibility to condemn the individuals that are perpetrating these acts. But they're not the only ones with a responsibility. Here in the West, we have a responsibility as well. We have a responsibility to insist on assimilation and integration for those who want to come and live in our societies. Now, that used to be non-controversial. I remember a time when we talked about the melting pot, we talked about America being the great melting pot. It used to be just common sense to say that if people wanted to come to America, they should want to be Americans. Unfortunately, many of the politically correct set, they don't believe that anymore. Now we've got folks that say, well, we should be the salad bowl. That somehow it is culturally arrogant. It is a colonial mindset to tell people that want to come here they should have to integrate and assimilate. You know, the great thing about America is we believe in the freedom of self-determination, in religious liberty, the freedom of speech. We're a majority Christian country, but we don't discriminate against those with different beliefs. We simply say that you shouldn't use the freedoms we give you to undermine those very freedoms in the first place. By the way, I'm also against this whole idea of hyphenated Americans. I think we need to stop calling ourselves Indian Americans, African Americans, Asian Americans. We're all just Americans. We need to stop dividing ourselves. We need to start insisting on English as the official language. We need to teach in our schools this idea of American exceptionalism.
Bobby Jindal, governor of Louisiana.
In other words, we need to do what used to be common sense in our country. Insist that those that want to come to America be Americans. It is a great strength of our country, but if we don't do this, all we have to do is look to Europe to see what could happen here in America. You have folks there that have been second, third generation that don't consider themselves integrated, assimilated. And that's a very, very dangerous thing. Now, I'll close with this. I'm optimistic, I'm confident that America can beat any external threat. We've done it throughout our entire history and we'll do it again, but we've got to remember our heritage, our tradition, our values. We've got to remember what has made this country so great and strong in the first place. And in part, our founding fathers got American exceptionalism right by understanding the purpose of our limited government wasn't to create but to secure our God-given rights. And it's only common sense that we insist on those that want to come into our country, respect and share our freedoms, respect and don't undermine those rights or freedoms, not only for themselves but for everybody else. And I just wish and I hope that our president would finally understand the real threat that radical Islamic terrorism poses not only to America but to our allies and our interest all over this world. Thank you for organizing this conference. Thank you for coming together to talk about the threat we face. But thank you, most importantly, for having the courage to stand up to the left when they denounce you for saying commonsensical things that need to be said in these dangerous times. Thank you.
Wow, good job, Bobby. He's a very effective speaker.
Right.
Very lucid, very fluent, understands the material, knows how to deliver it, and was on mark there, even using radical Islam. And I can live with that right now.
I'll give him an 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
8 out of 10.
You don't hear governors
speaking
speaking about this issue very often. It's usually federal politicians.
Yeah, he has more, Islam awareness than our president, and it's
You know,
really
and
amazing.
part of it is his background. His family's from India.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
they've
they
been
deal with
fighting
it head
this battle
on.
My
yeah.
for-
neighbors, I hate the Indians very much.
Yes, you do.
Guys,
All right,
we're
let's go
still
right
fighting
to
for the
because we got a
Kashmir.
lot of stuff to show you today. I'm
Diane,
Jumping Juma,
Steve,
Freaky
yeah.
Friday, Triskaidekaphobia.
Spooky. Try it.
And right now we're going to go to a hat trick here of Diana West, Steve Coughlin, Rob Muse, and David Yolshemi. That's 4. So
Yeah.
a 4 trick.
4 trick.
Well, is it cut together or what?
Yeah, it's all stuff.
Okay. Here, this is going to be a treat.
Yeah, it is.
For your brain. Brain
Yeah,
treats.
this is a
right
little
now.
off the top, out of the speeches, just talking, one-on-one, giving you
We
information.
got just we're going to go right down to the wire.
Yeah,
so
okay,
when,
ready?
When
Here
we
we
get
go.
out of it,
5,
I'll close it.
4, 3, go.
Well, I would like to highlight
Diana
the
West,
fact
Diana
that we
West.
have heard from some speakers, notably
I love
some
Diana
of our European
West.
friends, Lars Hedegaard, Hert Wilders,
Me too.
discuss Islam, not radical Islamism, not Islamist movements and things like that. And I think that I would like to offer some food for thought here, which is that one of the bases, or perhaps the basis of control that Islam uses against people is Islamic slander law, which prohibits criticism of Islam, and of course the death penalty for leaving Islam, apostasy. That's a pretty big control. And I think, and I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I've talked about it with many of you over the years, I do believe that when we, and some of our most fiery, passionate leaders, political leaders, persist in discussing Islamism and radical Islam, and most of the fighting right, you might say, subscribes to this as well. I believe that we are operating under Islamic slander law that prohibits the criticism of Islam. And when you hear someone like Lars or Hert Wilders and some of the others actually speak about Islam, it is simple, it is also defensible. And when we go back to the language of radical Islam, I think the implication is always that there is some regular Islam that has a regular Quran and a regular Sharia and a regular prophet that is okay and completely compatible, and all the measures that we want to take to protect ourselves or to fight against these incursions into our own liberties, we're always completely still shadowboxing with this fantasy notion. And I say it's fantasy only because the books are there to prove it, as Noni Darwish mentioned earlier. So I just put it out there for somebody to think about, because I know everyone here really, really wants to get at this and move this forward.
That's a great
And
point. We're
I
fighting
think,
this fantasy
we have a lot to
Islam,
learn
Tom.
from some of our European
We're fighting
friends
this
and others.
fantasy Islam.
Steve Coughlin?
And it's just amazing. Steve Coughlin.
Thank you. I'd like to kind
Steve
of write in
Coughlin.
on that draft. We had someone talk earlier about the fact that Sisi stood before Al-Azhar and called out the violent extremist, radical extremist, violent people, fundamentalist. I could keep going here. He did not do that. He went to Al-Azhar and he told the imams at Al-Azhar, and that is as doctrinal and mainstream as it gets, that they are responsible for what's going on, not calling them radical, but recognizing that their tradition, meaning Islam to date, is, I think as he sees it, going to destroy the Muslim world. But in doing that, he didn't call them radical, he called them who they are. And the blind sheikh was brought up earlier, his only status is that his status as an imam from Al-Azhar. Qawadari is from Al-Azhar. Azam, who founded the Muslim Al-Qaeda, is from Al-Azhar. We've heard phrases like radical Islamic extremist, extreme Sharia, fundamentalist, which if I could, when you use the word fundamentalist, which is actually a term that only applies to a 20th century Protestant Christian movement, you're allowing that word to be used against Christians in the future, because there's no such thing as fundamentalist Islam, okay, and a whole lot of other language. What you're doing is you're denying the fact that Islam is what it is. Now, I understand the tactics of it, but here's the thing. One of the reasons I use Reliance of the Traveler
Tom?
is because at the very beginning of the book, it says it was approved by Al-Azhar. And then you go to another page and you get the triple hit. It said it was approved by the American Muslim Brotherhood, which is everybody, anybody in this government and media talk to. Okay?
True.
It was signed,
Yep.
it was signed also by, he also signed that in his capacity representing a school in, or a center in Saudi Arabia, so it also represents Saudi buy-in. But most important, that entity he signed off on their name, I think it's I can't remember what it is in Riyadh or Jeddah, that is the OIC's subordinate element that does Sharia law, so that we know when we quote reliance of the traveler, it represents the prevailing view of Sunni Islam, period.
Right there. There it is.
So if I can take a quote out of that book, it is Islam, as is understood by everybody you talk to. So if you think, when you decide you're going to call this extreme radical, you've already submitted. If you're, I understand the tactics of it, that you have to bring people along, but if you're basically saying, as some people are, radical Islamic extremists, they're extremely correct. They're violently correct. And that is why the moderates can't get a hand in there. That's why they're all over here. So I just think we need to get there.
David Yerushalmi.
David Yerushalmi, Chief Counsel.
I want to have Rob
American Freedom Law
American
Center.
Freedom Law
speak to
Center.
Diana West's comment about the imposition of the blasphemy laws in the United States de facto in some of the cases we've dealt with.
Bring that mic a little closer.
But before I do that,
Thank you.
I just
Frank.
want to drill down on something. This is a group of professionals, and I want to make sure that we're all speaking at the same level. Understand that the
Very
Quran,
important what he's gonna say here.
Scripture,
Yes, listen.
and even the Hadith, which are the legal sunnah, those sunnah that have legal implications, in and of itself, while it's the basis of Sharia, the threat doctrine, in and of itself, it's somewhat meaningless. In the same way that in the Torah or the New Testament, there is the lex talionis, an eye for an eye. It literally says that. But what comes on top of that is everything. Sharia is scripture and it is hadith. But what it really is millennia of usul al-fiqh, the science of
Fiqh.
Islamic jurisprudence,
Yeah.
fiqh. That doctrine tells the devout Muslim what abrogation is. It tells the devout Muslim how to read any particular surah. The problem that Zudi has, and I'm a great admirer of Zudi's, and we have all kind of gone back and forth on that. But the problem he does have is if you're going to ask any moderate or academic Muslim who wants to read those verses differently than they have been over 1,000 years, he has to figure out a way to, as it were, replace the ulama, the legal authorities. It would be like me saying, I want to interpret the Commerce Clause as it literally says, which is not how it's interpreted. The only way I could do that is to get Andy or someone else appointed to the Supreme Court. Well, I can't do that, so it's just not reasonable.
Andy McCarthy to the Supreme Court. That'd be great.
Not in any Senate that I know of.
We're holding out great hope, nonetheless.
Now, I want to come back. The idea that Diana brings up and that Stephen talks about at the polemical or discourse level, but Diana talks about it at a more broad
Into the mic.
social, at the more broad social level, is something I'm going to ask my colleague, co-founder of American Freedom Law Center, Robert Muse, former, actually, I can't say former Marine, but former combat officer, and one who's been litigating for over a decade First Amendment issues. In Dearborn, as everyone knows, Dearborn, Michigan, the largest Arab American community in the United States, they have had a festival every year. And just about every year, Rob, before we hooked
know
up 3
about this
years ago,
festival.
and now the two of us
Yeah.
have been in litigation with the city. And 2 years ago,
You can see images,
they
watching, you
arrested
can see
a
the
group
images of the
Christian
festival.
peacefully talking to Arabs and Muslims. Rob had them acquitted, and then we ultimately sued them and got $300,000 in a settlement from them and a public apology. The next year,
This is the
we're
one
now
you're
litigating, the Bible Believers case, I want you to hear what happened at the event and understand how the police actually enforce these blasphemy laws.
Right, thank you, David. And you know, there is no coincidence that it happens to be the city of Dearborn, which has the largest Muslim population. It was in 2012, actually, this group of Christian missionaries who go around and evangelize throughout the country went to the Arab Festival, had signs, they walk on the sidewalk, and they were literally attacked stoned in the city street by an angry
Let's
mob
show
of
that.
Muslims.
Show
You
it
can
while
see
we're
this
talking
video
about
on our website. The video went viral, and you have to
Our
pause for a
video.
minute and say, "Is what I'm watching
Our
here
video,
happened
yes.
on a city street of the United States of America?" I mean, it's absolutely it was unreal. But even more so, at the end of the video, you'll see the Wayne County Sheriff's Department, and they bragged that they had the largest law enforcement presence ever at the Arab Festival that year. They had, I think it was 34 officers, 19 reserve officers, and a horse-mounted force of 6, larger than they had for the Super Bowl, larger when the President of the United States come. Well, they had this gang of miscreant teens literally throwing stones and bruising these Christians, and the Wayne County Sheriff's Department pulled them over at the end, and they gave the Christians an ultimatum. They told the Christians that if they did not leave the Arab Festival, they would be arrested for disorderly conduct. They didn't arrest one of those bottle throwers who was engaging in criminal acts. Well, we sued under the Civil Rights Statute, First Amendment. The federal judge in Michigan ruled against us, and he held that the violence justified the police essentially suppressing the free speech rights of Christians. I mean, pause and think about that for a minute. I mean, it's called the heckler's veto in First Amendment jurisprudence. It turns the First Amendment on its head. We appealed to the Sixth Circuit. I argued the case for a 3-judge panel, and they affirmed 2-1. The dissenting judge wrote a scathing dissent, and it was scathing and rightfully so. He said, not only is this decision wrong, it is dangerously wrong. And when you have a judge calling out his colleagues that way, and he made the point to say, look, the state should not be in the business of enforcing blasphemy laws. I mean, he said that in his opinion. We did a petition for a hearing en banc, meaning a full court, and any lawyer here knows how rare those are, and it was granted. It was granted this past October. So I'm going to be re-arguing this case, a very important case for First Amendment rights. I mean, even to have it granted en banc, the standard is it was a precedent-setting error of exceptional public importance. So a majority of the judges in the Sixth Circuit granted en banc review, and I'm going to be re-arguing this case March 4th to a panel of 15 federal court judges. So I mean, this is real. This threat on our free speech, and that's just one of many examples that we have. And Frank, when we opened this session, talked about the Muslim Brotherhood, and the explanatory memorandum, and how they their goal is to subvert us by our own hands. And we see they're using our laws, right? Because the problem we have with Islam, in here from a legal perspective, is obviously it's cloaked in protections under the Civil Rights Act and cloaked under protection under the First Amendment. And so dealing with those issues can be very difficult. Just one other quick example, another one happened in Michigan. One of the things that we see happening, and I think it ties in with David's study about how the mosques become centers for the jihadists, is that we see CARE and these other organizations going around the country and purchasing property in residential communities, and then going to the zoning board and say, we want to put a mosque here.
Yep.
Knowing that there's going to be a zoning issue, they have to get the zoning laws modified for that. And when the city says, no, we're not going to allow this zoning to take place for traffic concerns or anything else, what is it? It's automatically Islamophobe, and they sue them under a federal statute called RILUPA, the Religious Land Use Institutionalized Persons Act. And they drag the city into the litigation. And we just had represented several citizens showed up at one of these zoning board hearings who lived in the neighborhood. He said, "Look, this is going to create traffic problems for our kids. This isn't right to build a mosque in our residential neighborhood." Well, what did CARE do? CARE subpoenaed everyone who spoke out at that public hearing with harassing subpoenas, asking for private emails, commanding that they appear at depositions. We got contacted by 7 of them, and we filed what's called the motions to quash. And thankfully, our federal judge in Michigan granted those, which meant they, got rid of the subpoenas, and they awarded us attorney's fees as a result. But this sort of thing is going on, throughout the country, and they're using our laws, the Constitution, and the civil rights statutes against us.
Rob,
So that's he can't be more right than it. And the video that he's showing was the video that we got and edited for this. And that video, if you have not seen it, Muslim stoned Christians in Dearborn, millions of hits already all over the place. It's been all over the internet, but not one major network has picked that video up. I'm telling you, Tom.
That would be Islamophobic.
That is a criminal, especially when this particular case is going to the next court just below the Supreme Court. It's amazing.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We will see you on Monday. Got to go. Take care.